Hey, hi, how are you doing? Today I'm giving you guys a walkthrough of my wish list for the off season because as you all are very well aware, being a fan of Philadelphia sports is painful. It's very sad, hurts my soul. But it doesn't have to hurt. That's kind of the upside here. We don't have to be miserable. There's 4 things that our front office can do that if they do it right, we can all be happy because we'll win a championship, I think. So, the 4 big points that I've got, initially the first one, and this one's a big one, is firing Doc Rivers. I know that everybody was talking about like, oh, he's not gonna get fired because we were at a press conference and Daryl Morey was like, oh, Doc Rivers is gonna stay, he's here for next year or whatever, but he said that again at a press conference and Doc Rivers was sitting close enough to him. He's not gonna like be like, hey, you're gonna lose your job. You know, he won't just out him right then and there. So I do believe he's gonna get fired. If he doesn't, I'll be sad and we'll lose again. It's a huge point of emphasis. We need to fire him. If you're not already sold on this, and I don't think this is that divisive, especially within the Philadelphia culture, his rotations are terrible. He'll play multiple players at a time who are defensive liabilities, and as much as I'm like happy that we have James Harden, he's not the best defender. We need to be honest about that. Same thing with Georges Niang. I like him. He's a little streaky, but I mean, when he's on, it's great, but he's not the best defender. And then the fact that a lot of the times those two would be out at the same time, it's nice in one sense because Harden has people to dish to on offense to like get assists for or whatever, but on defense, we just get torn apart. The only way to make up for that is to have Thibault and Embiid on the floor at the same time to kind of even it out or whatever, but you're going to just lose so much more shooting because people are just going to target Thibault because he's not the best shooter. During playoff time, he reaches far too deep into his bench. A lot of playoff rotations I feel like stick to somewhere between like 9 and 10 players at the most. Sometimes you could maybe stretch 11 if you're just a deep team. Not a lot of teams can do that though. We're certainly not one of them. Doc Rivers loves to run 13 players. I think that was the amount he ran this last offseason, and even the one before that, and honestly, it was hard to watch. It was not very good. Thumbs down from me. Honest. He's a very stubborn, very stubborn coach. And I think the point that really kind of like drives this home is DeAndre Jordan. I understand, obviously there's history there. They're friends, and that's fine. I don't really care that much. Even if I think that Clippers team is kind of overrated, that's a discussion for another day. He refused to bench him, and even once he got called out for it, he stood his ground and was like, no, I'm dying on this hill. It showed like we just got torn apart whenever he was on the floor. And I understand we didn't really have a great backup for Embiid. Paul Reed was getting into a lot of foul trouble, but still, it's like he can't play. He can't play in a playoff game. He's just too much of a liability on both ends of the floor. He's just gotten old. Like, I understand you are reminiscing or whatever on the days of Lob City, but those days have come and gone, and you just got to take that for what it is, man. The final thing for Doc Rivers, he has a bad game plan on both sides of the ball, frankly. His style is just stupid simple, which sometimes that can work. Sometimes you can sell simple, but you need to have a playbook that's competent for the playoffs. You need to be able to switch it up, and he doesn't. He's a one note, one trick. If Embiid and Harden aren't out there, nothing's going to get done. Because on offense, Embiid and Harden, without them, it just grinds to a halt, the offense. There's nothing moving. No one's doing anything. It's just going to go south really quick. Same thing kind of on defense. Embiid and Thibault are the anchors, and without them, there's no real structure there. He's reliant on them making defensive plays to just keep himself in the game, and that's not really the best. It's not a good defensive plan. It's just not. It doesn't work. Overall, Doc Rivers, he's got to go. Step 2, we need to add depth. Every year in the playoffs, we do get exposed because he likes to reach deeper into our rotations. It exposes the fact that, yeah, our starters need rest, but we don't have other guys who can really step up and take on more of a role in the playoffs. We have like 4 guys. We're top heavy as a team. We have 4 guys who I think could hold their own on the basketball floor in the playoffs, especially Embiid, Harden, Maxey, and Harris. And then there was Danny Green, but barring a miracle, he's probably done, and if he's not done, he's not going to be doing the things that he was doing before he got injured, because he was honestly doing really good the couple games before he got injured, and then that happened, just derailed every piece of momentum he had going for him. Being a sports fan is sad. The 76ers need to move on from Tobias Harris's contract. I think that's it's a huge crutch for us right now as a team, especially as far as cap space goes. Pains me to say this. Well, not really, because I miss Jimmy Butler, but he was right. because we gave a lot of money to Tobias Harris over Jimmy Butler, basically. And I feel like that might be a little bit of a gross oversimplification of what happened and why he left ultimately, because he was saying other stuff on JJ's podcast that I won't really get into, but we overpaid him. We did. He's not a max player. He's a good player. He deserves some money. He's like the fringe all-star based on who else around him or who else in the league plays really well. Kind of just depends on how many touches he gets too. But it was a mistake throwing as much money at him. His contract, for the longest time, it was a 5-year deal. It made him untradeable. Nobody wants that deal. Nobody wants to take on that much money. It's just not something teams like to do, because then you're just tied up in one player who's gonna be solid, but he's nothing special. Let's be honest here. He's an all-star, fringe all-star player at best. And at worst, he's an inconsistent role player. Now, however, it's been 3 years since that contract got signed. And what that means for us basically is that contract is now very much movable, and there's a couple teams that do like to just take on salary dumps. And the one team, I'm gonna get into this a little bit more in a second, is Washington, the Wizards. They took on Russell Westbrook's contract. I feel like they've taken on other ones as well. They're eluding me. Maybe Kristaps? I don't know if Kristaps is even a Wizard right now. I have no idea. I think he is. He kind of fell off, let's be honest. Another point, the Sixers are in desperate need of a better backup center. Again, DeAndre Jordan wasn't getting it done. I am hopeful for Paul Reed, but I don't know. We'll see. He needs time. I think that's a given. Don't roast me, okay? I'm not an expert with the numbers. I don't know. I think we're already over the limit for salary room, but if we do trades and we move some money around, I don't know how much we'll end up having. I don't know what the potential is. I'm not a general manager, so cut me some slack here, but I did some rough numbers. JaVale McGee, I would like to have him. He's $5 million. He's the most expensive one of the couple I have listed here. I just really like his energy off the bench. I think he'd be a nice backup center, but not too set on him. I think some of the other ones on this list look better for the amount of money we'd pay him, because the free agents for centers this year is actually pretty good. Mitchell Robinson, Dwight Howard, and Andre Drummond are cheaper than him. They're all roughly $3 million, although I know Drummond doesn't really have, he does have beef with Embiid. It's kind of weird though, because they made it work when they were playing together, but then you could tell in that Brooklyn game that we had against them after the trade deadline, it looked like there was a little animosity there. I'm not going to read too much into it. I don't know. If they brought him back, I wouldn't be upset. I was upset when we initially signed him, but I was wrong. He was actually pretty good, filled the role. Dwight Howard, I'd have him back. A lot of text though, so I don't know. I mean, if we can find a better option, maybe anybody else on this list, I'll be happy with it. Mitchell Robinson, I think he'd be really nice. I'd love to have him show up. That would be great. Finally, the last one, and this is the one that I really have been pushing for, because I've been a big fan of this type of move for a while. DeMarcus Cousins. He gets along with Embiid. People kind of forget that. They're good friends from what I understand and from what I've led to believe. He's going to be signed probably for roughly $1 million, because I think he was close to the minimum. He was on like a $600K deal this year with Denver. I think it was Denver. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember. Okay. I like that one the most. If we can get him, that'd be awesome. Convincing him to come to Philly shouldn't be that hard, I don't think, especially with Embiid trying to like just be like, hey buddy, come on over. He's a decent shooter. Stretching the floor is going to be kind of nice. And he has his moments where he just goes off. And I think he had a really good stretch, or like a really good segment or a quarter or something like that in the playoffs. Pretty solid. Next point, Furkan Korkmaz and Shake Milton need to be traded, I think, because I think that they can make a good package. I think certain teams would look at those two as a combo and be like, that's pretty solid, and then give us back like a more solid, more consistent role player, somebody who's more of like a, you know what you're going to get out of him night in and night out. You'll get a consistent 10 points out of them. Shake is okay, inconsistent. Korkmaz, not good defensively at all, and he's not good enough at three-pointers, which is his whole shtick. So it's kind of like, what do? You just shoot threes. You're just so trigger happy, and then you miss them. Like, it doesn't work. I'm sorry. I know a lot of you like Furkan, but no. I truly believe this. I think that if we find more 3-and-D players, just generally speaking, that will kind of determine how far we go in the playoffs. Because firstly, shooting threes to just stretch the floor when Harden's out there, that's huge. You can't really put a price tag on that one. Even though I know the Harden effect, when you have him on a team and you have shooters out there, they just miss. It's just the way it goes, but maybe we get lucky. And then on defense, we definitely need people to make up for the lack of defense that we're going to get from Harden. And if we do end up trading Thibault, we're going to need to fill that spot as well. And if we have more defensive players, defensive-minded players, we take more stress off of Embiid having to do all the defensive anchoring, because he's great at what he does, but when I look at the defensive numbers, we're not as elite as we need to be to win a championship. Not yet. We're close, but we need a couple more players to put us over the edge, I think. The third point, add another star player. The obvious move here is Bradley Beal. I like this one the most. Embiid and Beal want to play with each other, or at least Embiid has vocalized that he wants to. I'm down to make it happen. I think that Harris, Thibault, and then 2 picks, the one for this year and the one for 2026, I think that's the other one we have. If we package all that together and move it out, and we get Beal and maybe one other role player, if salaries don't match, I'm not sure. That's kind of the most ideal trade package, I think, that we can put together for them. Zach LaVine, he's also been in trade talks. I don't like that deal as much because I think we'd have to give up way too much. I think Chicago's asking price for him is going to be too high. Personally, could be wrong, but I just don't think it's there. I don't think it's going to work. I don't even think he'd want to play in Philly, because if you're talking about playing second fiddle to somebody, you're not going to be the first, probably not even the second. You'll be like the third option, and I don't think that's really what he's looking for. Damian Lillard, he's the last guy, although his sense of loyalty is incredibly misguided. So I don't think we'd actually have a shot at landing him unless somehow he just comes out this offseason and he's like, I want to move, send me to Philly. It's the only way I can see that happening. And even then, I don't know if we have all the pieces we'd need to really make that move happen. And after they traded CJ McCollum, they might try to make it work another year, even though, in my honest opinion, I don't think they have any shot at all. I don't know. I feel like they gave up too much in that trade. So the final point, last thing, you gotta hope that Harden and Embiid return and they're both healthy. I personally think the Harden is still dealing with his injury a little bit, the hamstring. I think it's probably still bothering him because he's a little bit slower. Some of that explosiveness that he used to have that really helped him get to the line and just create space for his shots, it's just not there. He's an ISO player. Whenever he starts sizing up and dribbling or whatever, he's looking to get more space, but I think because he's lost some of his speed, some of his quickness off the dribble, he just can't create any room anymore. So the little room he does get, he just drives in and just looks for the foul. Doesn't even really look to make the shot, which bothered me a lot. But then I looked at other James Harden highlights. He was getting really good explosive moves, and I think I understand that because he's not getting those anymore, he's searching for other ways to impact the game, and that's all really he can muster at this time. His contract's up for negotiation pretty soon, so I think he's gonna maybe play a little bit better because he's gonna have to play harder just so he can get as much money out of his next contract that he can. He said he's willing to take a pay cut. Harden taking less money would help, especially if we try targeting someone like Bradley Beal. Contracts will make a lot more sense if he does take a pay cut, but I don't know. We'll see. The ideal scenario here, the ceiling, I think, we get the Harden that we got when he first showed up in Philly. He could drop 30, he could drop a solid 20, but no matter what, his teammates are getting consistently involved and everybody's just playing off of each other. That's the ideal situation for us. Embiid's always had his health issues, just always been a little bit iffy. The 76ers just kind of need to get lucky. Embiid's performance and his health have been better than ever these past couple of years, but I don't really think that this production is sustainable. I think that he's got like another year or two to perform at this high of a level. I hope that this sentiment ages terribly, but that's just the way I see it. I don't think that he's going to be able to keep this up for much longer. That's kind of all I've got for you guys. If the Sixers can follow these 4 points, I think we've got pretty great odds of winning a championship this next year. I'm very excited for this offseason. I'm very hopeful, which is a dangerous thing, by the way, especially as a Philly sports fan. But you know what? It is what it is. I remain optimistic regardless, which means I'm probably going to get let down. You know, that's just the way it goes. Anyway, that's all I really have for you guys. Hope you all have a good one and take care.